today we are in Washington, D.C., in front of Reason Magazine headquarters, and I'm with Nick Gillespie.
Thank you. Welcome back, Jason.
Thank you very much. It's been 2 months, and you were very kind. You did an interview even before we hit the road.
Yeah.
And we talked about what we had planned to be our wacky misadventure, and it turned out to be a wacky misadventure.
Yeah, I was disappointed that all of you made it back alive. I mean, I do. I'm a big fan of the RV movie, and that always goes horribly wrong. And usually Satanism or police or just other types of misadventures on.
Well, we were locked in a cage for like 10 hours.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean,
true.
It'll just get worse.
Yeah.
But we have a whole year to do this, so give us time.
All right.
But okay, so let's talk about you.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so we're in front of Reason headquarters. You've been there for like a decade running the magazine, right?
I've been there actually for more than that. I joined in October of 1993. As an assistant editor at Reason Magazine, and then I became editor-in-chief of the magazine in 2000, and I became editor-in-chief of Reason TV, our video site, in January 2008.
Yeah, I remember like your first issue of Reason Magazine is just this bright cover. It jumped out at me. I'm like, hey, that's not Reason Magazine.
Yeah, really.
And I've been loving it. I think it's great. Because I mean, what's the Reason approach? I mean, is it like cultural or accessible?
Our subtitle is Free Minds and Free Markets, and Reason was founded in 1968, and it was always it was interested in kind of culture and politics, and then during different decades, different things take on, different people emphasize certain things. When I became editor in 2000, I felt that in many ways, and I think prematurely, certainly that that many of the basic economic battles of the 20th century, kind of what PBS and the Commanding Heights, the miniseries The Commanding Heights, talked about as a battle not between free enterprise and communism, because communism got its ass kicked in that, but in a centuries battle between Hayek and Keynes, Hayek and free markets, and what the idea of decentralization, of dispersion of knowledge, and about empowering individuals to make more decisions rather than just a few people at the top. I took that seriously, that we have kind of won that basic economic battle, which I still think we have, although clearly there are many setbacks. What I started to emphasize more, and not at the expense of the economic or the policy side, but was also that libertarians, I think, had often given a very little interest in culture, and the fact is that however bad government was getting, however bad public policy was getting, over the past 30 years, 40 years, even 300 years, there has been this massive flourishing of individualized culture that continues apace.
Yeah, I wanted to get into that because I know you and the current editor-in-chief of Reason, Matt Welch, penned an article kind of outlining why libertarians should be optimistic about the future of freedom. Yeah,
in the December issue, which was our 40th anniversary issue, in December 2008, we wrote a story that we called The Libertarian Moment, and and the subtitle is something like, despite all the indicators, obvious, massive, and growing indicators to the contrary, we're about to enter a period of massive individualized freedom. And one of the reasons that we feel that way is that there's something about the current moment which is very similar to the early 1970s when Richard Nixon was in power. We were stuck in an endless quagmire of a war that was unpopular. We were in a period of economic, just appalling economic policy in terms of wage and price controls going off the gold standard, all kinds of bad stuff happening. The Great Society had grown the size of the government tremendously. Nixon was adding on top of that all sorts of regulations ranging from the EPA, he created the EPA, to the OSHA, Occupational Safety and Health Administration. And yet, by the end of the 70s, we were in an era of much lower taxes, the Reagan and Thatcherite revolutions, a kind of acknowledgement that smaller government was better, even if government had not gotten smaller, but the idea that the individual and the groups and communities and forces that individuals choose to become part of are more important than any kind of top-down solution. And there are parallels here where on the cultural side we are free. Technologically, innovation continues to happen in a way that it is cheaper and easier to do what you want to do, to live how you want to live, even if the government is growing, like a horror child. There's no question that that's happening, but I think there are reasons to be cheerful.
But I see, people having freedom on the internet. Certainly, I mean, it's helping like a lot of libertarian activists organize together. But then you have Obama appointing an internet czar, where he can cut off the switch if things get too free or something.
Well, one of the things though is think about China as an example, because we just celebrated, if that's the right word, or commemorated the 20th anniversary of the Tiananmen massacre, where the government rolled over peaceful demonstrators who included students, working people, just everybody in Chinese society. Tanks ran over them, killing hundreds of people, possibly more. Who there's really no good counts on that. The question is, China, are individual Chinese freer now than they were 20 years ago, much less 40 years ago? And the answer is clearly yes. It seems to me it's not perfect, and China needs to move much closer to an ideal of Western-style liberalism, meaning classical liberalism, individual rights, rule of law, things like that. In the U.S., are we freer than we were 6 months ago before TARP happened and the stimulus happened? I don't know, but I still maintain that Barack Obama has so far shown himself to be kind of like a lunatic messiah who thinks that he can control everything. I mean, he's literally already either has appointed or has talked about appointing another dozen czars. The fact is that the drug czar causes a lot of trouble, but the drug czar is powerless, like the last czar in Russia, to actually stop the use and dissemination of drugs. The internet czar and all of these other czars, the compensation czar, you name it, they will all be as powerless. And which isn't to say that we shouldn't say, don't do this, this is a waste of everybody's time, it can cause a lot of harm. But the fact is that power and energy and authority is still leaking from the center out to the edges, I believe.
I mean, that's all true, and I appreciate the optimistic message, but when we were in the jail, I mean, we were surrounded by people in there because they were busted for crystal meth and drugs like that. So there are, individuals out there that are still feeling the direct effects.
Here's a question about the drug war, though. Let's think about that, because that's an issue that I care a lot about. And the ultimate reason that I care about it, and I think libertarians do, it's not even a question of whether or not, I want to be free to do certain types of drugs. It really comes down to a basic question of, do I own my body? Do I own my mind? Do I own my consciousness? And do I have a right to alter that as I see fit? And that's why drug freedom, which is not just limited to crystal meth or pot or ecstasy, but it also extends to things like antidepressant drugs, to prescription drugs that are kept from us through some kind of bogus system of saying, okay, this drug is legal but only under these circumstances, etc. I mean, drug legalization is an important issue because it's about owning your mind, which in the end may be the only thing that we have clear title to.